Well, here we are, another stop on the journey to finding hope, inspiration, and positivity in this crazy world we all live in. You are listening to Changing the Perspective podcast. If you are watching this on YouTube, please subscribe to our channel and like this video below. If you are listening on a podcast service, please like our podcast on your preferred service. No matter how you choose to hear this interview, we are grateful you are following us on this journey. Hi, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Changing the Perspective. Today, I have Sue Vizcarra. She and I connected on our Women in Podcasting group off of Facebook. Really, that's become a great community for finding wonderful people to connect with in this podcasting world. Today, she's going to talk about a subject that I personally relate to because I know people in this situation. But it's one of those that's a little taboo and people don't talk about it very often. So when I saw her story, I was so excited to reach out and say, please, please, please come and do this podcast. And she agreed. So today we're going to talk about a Christian background and raising a transgendered child and kind of how she's managed that world. So tell us all about this.
All right. So hi, everyone. Again, my name is Sue Vizcarra, and we have been on this journey for about 5 years now.
Okay.
So actually, it might be longer than that, maybe 6 years now. So when my son first came out, he came out as lesbian. And I actually didn't believe him that he was a lesbian for many reasons. But one of the reasons is just the way he was growing up, as far as he wanted friends and people to like him so much that I felt like he was always changing himself to try to please others. And when he first said lesbian, he said, "Oh yeah, someone told me I was a lesbian." I'm thinking, well, why would you believe it if someone told you were a lesbian? So we started off on the wrong foot on this journey, and it made it very, very, very rough after that. I mean, absolutely, some days were horrible. And so he's already a strong-willed child. So then I was a single mom, and his father really wasn't in the picture. And so I'm doing all this single mom, working full time by myself. And now here comes this huge life change. And I was just like, I have no idea how to handle this and what to do about it. And I don't even know if it's real, and I don't know what to think. And so as time went on, he learned to hate my guts. And so that was pretty rough. And and at church, they were telling him as well, it's not possible. You're not a lesbian, you can't be one. So it made it really hard to try to get him to go to church. And it was sad because he had a few friends there that he loved to spend time with. But when the adults in the circle are telling him basically you're wrong, there's something wrong with you, basically, hey, you're an outcast. And almost like, he just didn't feel comfortable anymore. And that was really hard for me because I wanted to keep going to church. And although I knew with some people, they didn't agree with it or understand it, I did have some friends that they were just with me all the way. Like, I don't know what's going on here, but we love you and we're here with you. And that's what I needed. And I think that's what any parent needs. Just, you don't have to fix it for me. Just meet me where I am and just be with me, be with me as I try to figure all of this out. So eventually we went from lesbian to transgender. And so now I went from worried to freaking out. And I'm thinking, oh my gosh, where did this come from? And what does this mean? And what's going on? And did I do something wrong? Or maybe I should have done more of this when he was growing up, or I should have done less of that. Or, parents, we beat ourselves up. We beat ourselves up. But I know that all the people that I've met since then, everyone's story is different. Every upbringing is different. So, it's not the mom and it's not the dad. It is what it is.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And the hard thing is just learning how to manage life on this new journey. And so for us, I really didn't want it to be real because it was, like I said, it's so scary, so scary. I'm like, okay, now we're talking about eventually there's going to be physical changes. There's going to be name changes. There's going to be, I don't know what's going on. And so I researched like crazy. I mean, I researched like a madwoman, and that wasn't very helpful, honestly, because I found a lot of research that was totally against it, and then a lot of research that was totally supportive of it.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, this gets me nowhere. I'm a Libra, right? So I want to weigh things. I want one thing to weigh heavier than the other. It wasn't happening.
Yeah.
It wasn't happening. And so I wasn't getting that peace that I needed. And I have it now, but I didn't have it back then, and I wasn't finding it. And so eventually I found a wonderful group of moms who were Christian moms of LGBTQ.
Okay.
And called Freed Moms. And finding them was like trying to find a needle in a haystack.
Yeah.
Oh my word. I couldn't find my support group, because I could find the Christians who were like, oh my gosh, no way, that's bad.
Yeah.
And I could find the groups that were out there celebrating. We have LGBTQ kids, they're awesome, let's support them. I'm like, what does that mean? My kid has like 5 diagnoses, multiple illnesses, multiple mental illnesses. How do I know which one is impacting which one? It's not that easy. And actually I was envious of the families that I would meet where they seem so normal. They seem so normal, and they have a transgender kid, and it's like no big deal. And I'm like, wow, I wish my situation was that easy, but mine's way more complicated than that. Way more complicated. So we had a lot of visits to emergency rooms. We had a lot of hospitalizations. We had a lot of cuts up and down the arms, up and down the legs. And that is so frightening for a parent, that when your child is cutting, that's something that's so hard to relate to. And I didn't know it for the longest time. By the time I found out, my kid had already been doing it for a long time. I thought he was just changing his clothes to, be more gothic, wear the long sleeve, black clothes, etc.
Right.
He was hiding his cuts. He was hiding his cuts, and I didn't know it. And that, oh my gosh, that was devastating. So multiple hospitalizations, cuts, the name change. First of all, you have the pronouns, right? So now there's the request to use a pronoun that you're not used to using. And I thought, oh, this is so hard. This is so hard. I'm looking at you and I'm seeing my baby, long hair, da 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 da. Like, and now I have to use a different word. It was a challenge. It was a challenge to try to use the other pronoun. So I got better at that. And I might get yelled at once in a while when I would mess up. And it wasn't on purpose. It was hard.
Yeah.
Push that. And then comes the name change. And that is devastating.
Yeah.
It's like, but that was, I picked that out, my husband and I at the time, it's like, we that was precious to us. That was something that's a privilege that you're given as a parent. That is one privilege you're given, to name your child. And now here they are at 13, 14, 15, whatever age it is, and they're done with that name. You thought it was going to be there forever, and they're just done with it. They're going to just get rid of it totally. So he picked his name, and we fought him on it. We meaning his father was in and out of his life. So those of us in the family circle and the therapists were all like, are you sure about this name? And I'm not going to announce the name, obviously, to protect him. But the name that he chose, we're like, we're not quite sure that's going to get you the results that you want. But anyway, at 16 years old, I went through the legal procedure to have his name changed. And then from that, we had to update his state ID so that when he went to get his official driver's license, we'll have already gone through that. I had to go to Social Security and change that. Now, all the while, I'm making steps to help my son on his journey. We're fighting. Our relationship is strained. It's horrible. And I don't know how I went to work each day. I don't know how I did it. I don't know how I did it. And it was, I mean, there was time there where I did not want to live.
Mhm.
I did not want to live. I did not want to go through it anymore. And it was more than just, going through the changes that he was going through. It was just everything. It was just too much. It was too much. And I had to actually decrease my friends list on Facebook because that was painful, actually going on there and watching these, everyone's highlight reels of how great their life is. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't handle this. So I had to actually just start cutting people off of my friends list because I wasn't strong enough yet
Mhm.
to be able to handle that. I couldn't. I couldn't. I was like, oh my gosh, my life is not like that. It's never going to be like that.
Yeah.
I can't, that's just not, no, that's not going to work.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I had to make a lot of changes. I had to make a lot of changes. And I'm just so thankful. I mean, really, my biggest saving grace was that friend of mom's, that mom's group. I met moms who their kids have already been going through it for 10, 15 years. They got married and everything. Other ones were about to get married. And so that, of course, gave me hope that, okay, some parents wonder, oh my gosh, if my kid is transgender, are they ever going to find a life partner? And I met some people whose children did. They found life partners and they were living wonderful lives. And they all had decent jobs and they all lived what we call, the normal life when you're not in that, when you're making that comparison. Um, so I was like, and then I met a mom who was going through this with an adult child in their 30s, another one, adult child in their 40s. And it's interesting because we would look at each other and they were like, well, I'm glad I didn't go through this when my kid was 16. And I'm thinking, I'm glad I didn't go through this when my kid was 30,
Mhm.
because they each have
Yeah.
their challenges.
Oh yeah.
They each, oh my gosh. But here we are now. We've had the name change, the paperwork changed, etc. We have no issues with doctors. We have no issues with health insurance now. I mean, we just don't have any issues. He's working full time, taking care of himself. He has a vehicle, and yeah. So now we've come so far. We've
Yeah.
come so far. It's amazing.
Yeah. So born male, transitioning female, born
Opposite.
female, transitioning male.
Hmm.
Okay. So when you referenced lesbians, it's because she at the time liked women, but actually identified in a masculine way. Correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
So then the transgender piece is because she at the time felt like she'd identified masculine, she felt like she needed to transition to a full he.
Correct.
Okay. I just want to make sure like I understood that piece. So, um through all of that, obviously, the religious side of you and the parent side of you, I assume that somewhat butted heads a little bit because I know, the religious background part is very much that's not right. Nothing about that is normal, all of that. But then the parent side of you wants to support and love your child, however that looks. So, how did you kind of keep that from butting heads too much, or how did you adjust how those two worlds came together?
Well, so then I started doing religious research.
Yeah.
And there are definitely plenty of books out there that anyone can read, from a perspective. And they call them the clobber verses that talk about homosexuality and how that is wrong. But then when you start doing the research and you go back in time, you start to get a different perspective of it.
Okay.
Of what exactly did those verses mean and what does that mean? And it takes a lot of research to, look at the scriptures and to see, even the first time homosexuality was used in the Bible,
Mhm.
and so for me, yeah, that really helped doing the research, with those clobber verses, as they say, that really helped. And then I just thought about it and I said, well, if someone, for me, this is one of the things that I did as a mom or even religious. I'm thinking, okay, I have no desire to kiss a girl.
Yeah.
So if I were to force myself to kiss a girl, it doesn't mean I'm going to like it. But if someone else is female who wants to kiss a female and they enjoy it, then it has to be something innate.
Mm-hmm.
It's like it's got to be something in here because I know I don't want to kiss a girl.
Right.
I have no desire whatsoever.
Yeah.
And so, I try to even look at it from the biological standpoint of, well, okay, then yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Why would you want to be attracted to someone that you're not attracted to? And
Right.
so that helped. That helped a lot. And then, I just, if people would come at me and have their opinion about how that's wrong or it's a sin or this or that, I would just be graceful with them,
Mm-hmm.
because they are where they are in their
Yeah.
thought process.
Yeah.
As long as they're not going to be mean to me and mean to my kid, then I'm going to be, kind to you as well as you work through whatever you need to work through.
Yeah. I think a lot of times, that religious world gets a little bit of a bad rap from a hypocrite standpoint because although they sit there in church and they listen to love everyone and to not judge, sometimes they're the first people to do the judgment because of what they think their background is. And I know that's super hard to manage. You sit in church and you're like, I just had a conversation with that person that is not very Christian like, and yet we're sitting next to each other in the pew at church. And, I know sometimes that can be tough. And in this situation, I'm sure that was very tough, um, almost daily for you, probably.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. I think
yeah,
it's hard for someone who is Christian and has certain beliefs because we believe that the Bible is the inerrant word of God. But
right.
the Bible does have written words in a certain language that, etc. There could be an issue there.
Yeah.
And I tell you, some of my Christian friends who were Christians the longest, who I actually expected a different reaction from, were the most loving.
Yeah.
They were the most loving because they learned what being a Christian was all about.
Yes.
It's being loving and be loving even if you don't understand it. And I feel like a lot of times people are attacking LGBTQ as if their attack is going to shed some light on something that they haven't heard before.
Right. Yeah.
Like, oh, well, make sure you let them know that that's wrong. Like, okay, they were all raised in the same world here, and you don't think they've heard this from people with that opinion
Yeah.
a million times already, you know?
Yeah.
And then there are some parents that they still do. They actually still kick their kids out of the house.
Hmm.
That does still happen. That
Yeah.
does still happen. And that's sad
Hmm.
and it's hard because I feel like one of my favorite quotes is a man convinced against his will is of the same opinion still.
Hmm.
So if you try to convince someone otherwise and then they pretend that they're going to believe what you believe, so someone who's gay is going to pretend to be straight just to be accepted by you. If they're really gay, eventually the gay is going to come out.
Right.
You can't suppress it, and I don't know why people think that going against who they are is going to change who they are. I
Right.
don't I just don't I don't know. I don't get it. It's
Yeah.
not going to change it.
Yeah. So I assume at one point, kind of in your story, it sounds like you thought this was a phase. Like maybe a little trial and error, like you don't really know what you want. You're pretty young still. At what point in the process did you realize, oh no, this is like, this is sticking, like this is permanent?
For me, what I was looking for was persistency and consistency
Yeah.
and over time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so eventually enough time went by that I was like, okay, this is not going away.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is what it's not going away.
Yeah.
So I think that's what it is, because if you are in a phase or just testing something out, whatever it is, it's not going to last long.
Right.
It's not going to survive time.
Yes.
Like I took my kid to karate or gymnastics or whatever it was, try this, try that, try it for a little while, try a new craft, try a new, whatever it was. It didn't last long. Okay, yeah, that's not for me, mom. Forget it.
Yeah.
So yes, I think just over time, if it's still persistent,
Yeah.
there's truth to that.
So you mentioned that kind of through that process, he was cutting, had some mental kind of challenges through all of that. Has that gotten better? Has that been resolved to some degree?
Yes. Oh
Perfect.
my gosh. Like night and day,
Yeah.
night and day. I'd say some of it's maturity,
Yeah.
some of it's being able to transition.
Mhm.
Um, but I used to worry every day if I'm going to get a text message or a phone call, or I was on
Yeah.
high alert 24/7. I just never knew. I just never ever knew when something bad was going to happen. And, like I said, we started with the name change at 16. And then when he was 17 and a half, I agreed to the testosterone.
Okay.
That was huge for
Yeah.
me. And again, this whole time we're having all these mental illnesses, right? All at the same time. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like, how do you know what to do? Because
Right.
it's just, it could be this. So we did the testosterone, and I thought to myself, if my child wants to have surgery, which is huge,
Yeah.
if my child wants to have surgery, I thought, well, he doesn't like needles. I don't like needles. So if he's going to do the testosterone and put a needle in his stomach or his thigh once a week, every week for the rest of his life, if he can do that, as scared as he is of needles, and he passed out just like I would, he passed out,
Yeah.
give a needle, he passes out. So I
Yeah.
said, that right there
Yeah.
gave me so much peace
Yeah.
with him taking the testosterone, and that I was more ready for the major surgery.
Yeah. So
Much more.
has he had the major surgery?
So he had the major surgery.
Okay.
Yep. So he had the surgery. And, over time since then, he just got stronger and
Awesome.
stronger and stronger. And it's been I don't worry about him cutting anymore.
Yeah.
I do not worry about suicidal ideation anymore. I don't worry about hospitalization anymore at all. Now, do I still feel there are some other challenges there? Yes. He still has other mental challenges, but thankfully he's had some great therapists that give him the tools that he needs to manage those emotions when they start to become not so positive.
Yeah.
And I've been absolutely impressed, so impressed with
That's
how far
amazing.
he's come.
Yeah. Has it been hard, like, for him to bring people he's dating or he's interested in home, knowing that that was different than the expectation you had of your child growing up? Has that been kind of hard, or are you kind of adjusted to it now and it's just what it is?
That was probably one of the first things I was able to adjust to.
Okay.
That was I think that was easier to adjust to than the name change,
Yeah.
you know.
Okay.
Um, but I had to change the rules, and that is okay. So that means they're not spending the night in your room.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, the old fashioned slumber party thing is out the window now.
Yeah.
Because as a mom, it's not about we don't have our children have other friends spend the night in the room, and our biggest fear is not are they going to get pregnant? It's no, that's just not what's going to happen. That's not
Right.
what you need to be focusing on right now on this intimacy, in the bedroom. So no, that's not happening.
Yeah.
So that had to change. But as far as No, I mean, this kid has had so many girlfriends and a few boyfriends that I mean, I lost count. I, I don't
He's
know.
enjoying life. Maybe a little too much, but he's enjoying life.
Here's another one. Okay.
That's fun. So you mentioned before your interview that you got married kind of in the middle of all of this. And I know that's not part of this story, but I guess
Yeah.
your husband had to have helped you through a lot of emotional stuff. And I think that's awesome that you could marry and have a support during a very hard time in your life. Has he adjusted to everything with you, I guess, since he kind of came in the middle of it?
Well, the cool part is for him is when he came into it, um, my kid was already on this path.
Okay.
And so he never knew my kid as anything other than who he is now.
Yeah.
He never knew him any other way. So that part was easy,
Yeah.
and my husband's a very open-minded person, and he actually has a cousin who transitioned many, many, many
Okay.
years ago. So for him, it wasn't as shocking as I thought it would be for him.
Yeah.
And really for a long while at the beginning, I just didn't get into too many details because if we would go to dinner, it's like, whew, now I
Yeah.
can just be me. I'm a human.
Yeah.
Aside from everything else I'm dealing with in life, I'm human and we're gonna have a conversation. Like, wow, this is amazing.
That's awesome.
But
Well, I
yeah,
want to
he's been so
commend
supportive. Yeah, he's been so
that's
supportive.
awesome. I want
Yeah.
to commend you as a parent. I have some friends that are gay. I have one I mentioned to you that's transitioning. She's transitioning in her 50s. Um, she's always identified pretty masculine. So if you ever knew her during that time, and I say she literally is just starting her transition. And so the he thing hasn't really been much of a deal quite yet. But like if you knew her, you weren't going to ever see her in girly stuff. When we went to the beach, it was tank tops and like boy shorts. I mean, has always been that way. And so when she came, or he, I guess now, called me about it, I was like, that's kind of how I've always known you. Like, that's not very different for me. And so I know though that in the 50, like in her 50s, a lot of her friends, they're like, what is happening? And she's had a lot of backlash. I have friends that are gay that came out when they were teenagers as well, and their parents weren't the best. Some of them had, great experiences. And so I commend you for really just sticking it out and being there for your child, because I know that was probably very tough. And so I think that's amazing of you as a person and speaks volumes for who you are. So congrats on that front for sure. I think that's awesome.
Thanks. It was hard. It was hard.
Yeah. I think it's amazing. So any advice or anything, you kind of want to close this thing out with us all?
So I would say if you know a parent that is going through this, try not to give them too much advice on what they should or shouldn't do because each situation is so unique. It's more just be there for them. Even if
Yeah.
you don't understand it, just say, I don't understand it. It doesn't seem to fit with what I believe, but I'm here for you and I'm here for your child.
Yeah.
And that's what I would just ask of anyone, even if you don't understand it.
I think that's great advice. I would also can add something is, if you come from a religious background and your church doesn't fit with that, there are a lot of churches out there where you can still be filled in the word that doesn't make you feel like an outcast. And so for those people that are going through that.
Yeah, actually, we'll make sure to put a couple links to
Perfect.
websites that list affirming churches because there is a
Okay.
difference between affirming and welcoming.
Okay.
And not everybody realizes the difference. Welcoming is we don't agree with it. However, we're going to treat you with all the love and respect in the world. Affirming it, we affirm who you are 100%.
Ah,
So there is a difference. So
okay.
anyway, There is a difference between
Yeah.
affirming and welcoming.
I don't know if I knew the difference. I knew that there were some that I have friends that go to often, but I don't know if I knew that there was a difference in the two types. That's pretty cool.
Mhm. Yeah, and so just because you're in a church and you see a gay couple doesn't mean you're in an affirming church.
Yeah,
Because
that makes
sometimes
sense.
gay couples, even the gay couples may know that, but they want to be in a church and they want to be in a loving church. And so they might be there.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, we'll definitely link that to this interview for sure. If you haven't sent that to me yet, send that to my email so I can make sure. Um, any resources to give to other parents outside of that? Do you have that? You mentioned that support group. How do they find people like that?
Yeah, and there are plenty of Facebook support groups,
Okay.
as well. And of course I think everybody knows about the Serendipity Doodah group because of the Netflix show Schitt's Creek. So a
Yes.
lot of people found that group, and once you find that group, you'll find other groups as well.
Okay.
So I
Oh,
think
good.
that's very helpful. It's so helpful to go into a group and just hear that you're not the only one
Mhm.
going through whatever it is that you're going through.
Yeah. And those groups just aren't for transgendered, it's the LGBTQ community altogether, right?
All together.
Okay.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
there's branches off from that offshoots that'll then be more specific to
Okay.
transgender, if that's what you need.
That's amazing.
Mhm.
Well, I appreciate you being on this podcast with us today and sharing your story. I know, it's probably hard to kind of tell it, but as you tell it, you heal a little bit, through your process. And I think it's awesome you decided to come on. I wish the best of luck to your son as he continues on his journey. I'm sure he still has hurdles that has to be um, gone over as he goes through life in
Mhm.
general.
Yeah.
Um, so I wish him the best of luck in all of that. I don't understand that very well, but I know that's probably a struggle. And so good for him for deciding that this is what he wanted and sticking with it. And I think that's amazing as well. So I wish you both luck in that world for sure. And thank you again for coming on.
Thank you for having me on the show. I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
To my listeners, if this is something that you relate to, please check out the resources in the interview description. We will make sure we put the right things in the right places for you so it's easy to access and find later. We know that if you're in the situation and you want help, there are always places to get it, and we would love to get you in that direction. So make sure you check out that description of the interview. Also, make sure you subscribe to whatever service you're on, whether it's YouTube or a podcast service. Please like our page so you can be updated weekly when these stories come out. And we would just love for you to continue following us on this journey as we provide hope, inspiration, and positivity. Everyone have a great week. Bye.
Bye, everyone.